The planet Pelagos-IV was a world of eternal twilight and crushing silence, a sphere of water so deep that its bedrock existed under pressures that turned oxygen into a solid. To the Aquari, the planet's native inhabitants, the depths were not merely a habitat, they were a holy realm. They lived in the mid-layers but they worshipped the abyss. Their entire religion was centered around the Leviathan's husk, a legendary artifact resting in the sunken cathedral, 10 miles below the surface. They believed this husk was the battle armor of the god of the first tide, a being who had fought the chaos of the primordial stars to give Pelagos its oceans. For thousands of years, the Aquari high priests had attempted to awaken the god, believing that the one who could inhabit the husk would lead their species to a galactic conquest, washing away the dry dwellers in a cosmic flood. Guto Oliveira sat in a pressurized cage, his ears popping as the descent cable groaned. He wasn't a god, a king, or a prophet. He was a diver from the Port of Santos, a man who had spent 20 years welding hull plates under the murky waters of the Atlantic before the stars called to him. He was a relic hunter now, hired by the Aquari because his DNA matched the ancestral signature required to bypass the temple's outer sensors. To the Aquari, this made him a holy vessel. To Guto, it just meant he had the right key for a very old lock. As the cage settled into the silt of the cathedral floor, the bioluminescent coral of the temple flared to life, casting long eerie shadows across the obsidian walls. The high priest, a creature of shimmering fins and obsidian scales named Thalassen, swam alongside the cage, his psychic voice vibrating in Guto's skull. "Behold, child of the surface," Thalassen pulsed, his words dripping with a fanatical reverence. "You stand before the shroud of the destroyer. For eons we have guarded the altar of pain. Many have tried to wear the god's skin, and all have been crushed by its divine weight. If your blood is true, the armor will accept you. If you are a pretender, the deep will claim your soul." Guto stepped out of the cage, the heavy, armored diving suit he wore for the descent clanking against the stone. He looked up at the Leviathan's husk. It was a massive hulking shape of dark, weathered metal, standing nearly 9 feet tall. It was boxy, brutalist, and covered in thick, reinforced plating that had survived the crushing weight of the ocean for millions of years. Blue light leaked from its joints, and the visor was a thick, curved slab of reinforced quartz, darkened by age and salt. To the Aquari, it was a terrifying visage of a war god. To Guto, it looked like something he had seen in a shipyard museum back on Earth. He approached the pedestal, his heart hammering against his ribs. The Aquari priests circled him, their tridents glowing with kinetic energy, ready to strike if the ritual failed. Guto reached out a gloved hand and touched the cold metal of the suit's chest plate. The moment his fingertips made contact, a sharp hiss echoed through the water. The cathedral groaned as ancient pumps began to whir, clearing the silt from the suit's hidden vents. The heavy chest plates began to slide open, revealing a cockpit lined with padded, pressure-resistant gel and a dizzying array of tactile levers and manual switches. There were no psychic interfaces. There were no holographic neural links. It was a mechanical seat built for someone with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a lot of grit. "The god opens his maw." Thalassen shrieked psychically, the entire Aquari choir beginning a low, rhythmic chant that made the water vibrate. "Step inside, prophet. Take up the mantle of the first tide. Lead us to the great drowning." Guto didn't hesitate. He stepped into the suit, the gel padding molding to his body with a familiar, snug embrace. The heavy plates began to close, sealing him in a tomb of iron. For a moment, there was only darkness and the sound of his own breathing. Then the power cell kicked in. A low-frequency hum vibrated through Guto's spine, a sound he had heard 1,000 times in the docks of Brazil. It was the sound of a heavy-duty industrial turbine spinning up to speed. Suddenly, the visor flashed to life. A bright amber-yellow head-up display HUD flickered across the quartz, scrolling through lines of text at a frantic pace. Guto's eyes widened as he read the holy gospel of the precursors. It wasn't written in a celestial cipher or a forgotten alien tongue. It was a standard diagnostic boot sequence. Sistema Operational Iniciado. The text read. Traje de Mergulho Profundo, Class Titan. Modelo, Santos Diver 2099. Propriedade de Autoridade Portuaria de Santos, Brazil. Underneath the status bars, a small, pixelated logo appeared, a stylized anchor and a gear, the emblem of his own home city. The armor of the Chaos God was a deep-sea mining and hull repair suit, manufactured in the late 21st century by a Brazilian engineering conglomerate. Guto let out a short, hysterical laugh that echoed inside the helmet. "Santos," he whispered. The god of the first tide was a welder from the Port of Santos. He grabbed the twin control joysticks. On the left grip, someone had etched a name with a laser torch, Zeca. Below it, a small sticker, miraculously preserved by the suit's internal vacuum, showed the crest of the Santos Football Club. To the Aquari, these were the sigils of the infinite. To Guto, it was proof that the ancient gods were just guys like him, blue-collar workers sent to the far reaches of the galaxy to dig for minerals and fix broken pipes in the dark. "Speak to us, O Mighty One." Thalassan's voice echoed into the suit's external sensors. "Tell us of the wars you fought in the heavens. Tell us how we shall crush the stars." Guto looked at the HUD. A red warning light was blinking in the corner. Oxygenio M10%. Alerta de presseo, valvula de escape obviasuri. The god was running out of air. He realized the chaos the suit was designed to fight wasn't a cosmic rebellion, it was the crushing reality of deep-sea physics. The Leviathan hadn't come to Pelagos to conquer, it had come to work. Probably, a previous cycle of humanity had established a colony here, and when the civilization collapsed, the tools they left behind became the myths of the survivors. Guto engaged the external speakers. The sound was distorted, a booming, metallic roar that amplified his voice until the cathedral shook. "I am not your god," Guto shouted, his voice cracking with the strain of the oxygen deprivation. "This isn't a war suit. It's a job. Your legends are just a maintenance manual that you've turned into a prayer book." Thalassan recoiled, his fins bristling. "Blasphemy. The god tests us. He speaks in the tongue of the ancients to hide his true intent. Use the lance of destruction. Show us your power." Thalassan pointed to a long, heavy cylinder attached to the suit's right arm. The Aquari believed it was a weapon that could shatter mountains. Guto looked at the icon on his screen. Ferramenta de Perfuricao Termica, Atincao, Calor Extremo. It was a thermal drill, used for cutting through volcanic vents and reinforced titanium hulls. "You want to see what a god does?" Guto grunted, yanking the right joystick. The suit's arm whirred to life, the thermal drill spinning up until it glowed white-hot, hissing as it vaporized the water around it. He didn't point it at the surface. He pointed it at a massive, clogged drainage grate at the base of the cathedral, a grate that the Aquari had spent centuries worshipping as the drain of sin. Guto realized the cathedral wasn't a temple, it was a geothermal power station. The chaos that the Aquari feared, the shifting tectonic plates and rising temperatures of their ocean, was being caused because the station's cooling vents were blocked by the very holy offerings the aliens had been throwing into them for generations. With a roar of steam and a spray of molten silt, Guto drove the thermal drill into the grate. The Aquari shrieked, believing he was destroying the world. But as the drill cut through the debris, thousands of years of gold icons, sacrificed animals and ceremonial stones, the grate finally cleared. A massive, powerful current of cold water began to circulate, drawn in by the station's automated pumps. The abyssal cathedral began to hum with a new, healthy rhythm. The red warning lights on the suit's HUD turned green. Fluxo de refrigericao restaurado. Esticao operational. Guto stepped out of the suit, the heavy plates hissing open as he returned to the water, his own portable rebreather clicking on. The Aquari were frozen, watching as the temple transformed. The glowing coral dimmed, replaced by the steady, clinical blue of industrial floodlights. The spirit of the deep was just a 21st century AI rebooting its cooling systems. He looked at Thalassan, who was staring at the suit, the husk, with a look of profound confusion. The god hadn't led them to war. The god had just fixed the plumbing. "Your world isn't dying because the gods are angry," Guto said, his voice quiet in the now stable current. "It was dying because you forgot what these things were for. You stopped being engineers and started being worshippers. You don't need a crusade, Thalassan. You need a maintenance crew." He swam back toward his cage, leaving the Leviathan standing on its pedestal. The suit remained there, a silent sentinel of steel and sea salt, its visor reflecting the industrial lights of the station. On its shoulder, the word Santos was now clearly visible under the grime. Humanity had proven the ultimate relic hunter truth. The galaxy is full of holy relics and divine armors that can level cities and command the elements. But if you peel back the barnacles and the myths, you won't find the fingerprints of a creator. You'll find the sweat of a worker. We weren't the children of the gods. We were the guys who built the world, left the instructions in a language no one bothered to learn, and went to lunch. And sometimes the most divine thing a human can do is remind the universe that even a god needs to punch a time clock. As Guto's cage ascended toward the surface, he looked down one last time. The sunken cathedral was no longer a place of mystery, it was a power plant. And the god of chaos? He was just a guy named Zeca who liked football and knew how to handle a drill. Guto smiled, the pressure in his head finally equalizing. He had a sudden, intense craving for a cold beer and a walk on a beach that wasn't 10 miles under the sea. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. The suit is sealed. The work is done. If you enjoyed this underwater revelation of the gods, hit that like button. Comment below. What industrial tool from today would look the most like a magic artifact in a million years? Subscribe for the next story in the Relic Hunters saga, the Archive of Dust. The pressure is stable. The shift is over.